here. And now the panel talks about the innovation ecosystem and the entrepreneurship ecosystem. And the title of the conference is Innovation from Transforming Ideas into Business. Now there are broadly two aspects of business and entrepreneurship that I want to talk to you about. The first is on the journey of innovation itself. And the second is what should an organization do so that it can leverage the ecosystem to its own benefit. First thing first, let us try and understand innovation. Now, if we were to really break down the process of innovation into certain finite steps, we could broadly think of 4 steps. The first one would be discovery. After discovery, you have ideation. After ideation, you have experimentation, or what we call as prototyping. And finally, you have execution or a scale. So discovery, ideation, experimentation, and scale. These are the 4 stages of the innovation process from transforming ideas into business. There might be a slight change in the title, if you will, because often the start of innovation is not an idea. The starting point of innovation is a discovery, which is interesting that every innovation starts with a discovery. So what do you discover? At the essence, what you're discovering is a latent need of a customer or a consumer or a problem which is not stated. Oftentimes what happens is when a customer comes to you with a problem, what he means is entirely different. For example, about 100 years back, when Henry Ford went about asking people that, hey, what do you want? I have some capital with me, and I can start making something for you. People said equivocally that we need faster horse carts. Now think of it. When they said we need faster horse cart, what they might have meant is a mode of transportation which is as fast as a horse, or maybe slightly faster than a horse, but as cheap as a horse cart. Lo and behold, if Henry Ford would have gone ahead and made faster horse carts, he would have made some money. But what he interpreted by faster horse carts is a convenient way of transportation. And hence came Model T, which by many standards, which might be surprising to many of us, is by many standards cheaper than several other cars that came by, including the one which we had, Tata Nano. So Model T was extremely, extremely efficient. Or back home, when you go about doing your surveys with consumers, often consumers want to say something to you that puts them in a good light and not what exactly that is bothering them. And that is why ideation is not the first stage of innovation journey, it is discovery. The companies which have discovered the need that even customer is unable to express are the ones that take the market. Now, if you look at this process again of discovery, ideation, experimentation, execution, or scale up, there are a couple of myths which are associated with innovation and ideation. And I'll talk about 3 myths here primarily. The first myth is that ideation is all about generating ideas. And to supplement some of these insights, I want to also share some anecdotes with you. So let us go back into history. Long back, about 80 years back, there was a person by the name Carlson. He was an experimenter, tinkerer, and an engineer. And he used to work in a company called Haloid. And now through his experimentation, he came up with this very interesting method of creating images using a dry powder. Now with this very rustic, rudimentary mechanism of taking images using a dry powder, he went out to sell his idea, or I would rather say the prototype, to people. Now the first gentleman whom he approached was a person by the name Thomas Watson. Thomas Watson, by the way, was the founder of IBM. And when Carlson went up to Thomas Watson showing what he had to present, Thomas Watson gave a cold shoulder saying that this doesn't interest me. The next person whom he met was a gentleman by the name Eastman Kodak, the founder of Eastman Kodak. And Kodak said that, well, we are a photo roll making company, celluloid company, so we're not really keen on what you're trying to do. And this guy was so desperate to sell his idea and exasperated towards the end of it all that he almost gave up the idea. And then he went up to his boss, said that, boss, look, I really went about to the people who could fund me, and I didn't see anyone. So the best is for me to resign and start something on my own. And the boss asked that, by the way, what is this process called? And he said that I haven't named it anything, but I call it Xeroxography. So the company said, okay, let me fund you. And as you may be well aware by now that the company's name got changed from Haloid to Xerox. Now the problem with Xerox, the world's first photocopier, was that how do you price a Xerox machine? Now the best way to price an innovation or something which is new to the market And we live with this definition of innovation as something new to the market, not necessarily new to the world, which is invention. Now, how do you price something which is new to the market? Now, the rudimentary way of pricing is that you look at the second best option available to the customer and put a premium on your product. Or other ways, what pharma companies do is that they amortize all the R&D and sales expenditure into the number of drugs for the period that they have a patent on. None of that could work. And that is where the marketing genius came handy. So when all the engineers were done making this robust machine called Xerox, the marketing and the sales people kicked in saying that how do you put a business model around this product? And that's where we have the first, arguably the first, pay-as-you-go model of pricing. So the pay-as-you-go model, which is so fanciful in the cloud economy, is not really new. 8 years back, companies such as Xerox went ahead and said that you don't have to pay for the machine per se. You take the machine almost for free, and you pay based upon how many times you take the photocopier. So the first takeaway for all of you has to be that innovation is not about generating ideas alone. Innovation happens across every single stage of the journey. You innovate in generating ideas. You innovate in making technology usable to you. You innovate in creating a price point which is attractive to the customer, the sales channels, the marketing, the product positioning, everywhere you have to innovate. So each of these innovations are nothing but short cycles of ideas to realization. Look at Kevin Kerr, the speaker before us. Sachet, right? Chick shampoo and some of these things that he pioneered in Indian outfit. Now, shampoo per se was not invented by him, but he invented the form factor. And as a result, he penetrated market with a hitherto never heard of shampoo, let alone use shampoos. So that's the first takeaway, that innovation is not about ideation, it is across the journey. The second important take, and which is what we have been very carried away, especially in Indian parlance, is that innovation has to have technology. Let us try and understand this element of technology. What exactly is technology? If you go back to the proverbial definition of technology, and I would want to use the word technique instead of technology, is that technology is something that reduces human effort, right? I was doing something with a whole lot of human effort, but then came a pulley and a lever and the more sophisticated forms that we are used to, and everything is tantamounting to reducing human labor. Which means that every innovation need not have a technology, or every startup need not have a technology. We just saw the mortality rate of just the tech startups, because the problem with tech startups often is that there's so much me too, there's nothing much to offer. If I take internet away for a moment, then maybe the entire ecosystem of Indian startup might come crashing down. So internet, which is the general purpose technology, enabled the entire platform of India. So let's not take technology as a given or as a quintessential element of innovation. That's a second take. Ideation, technology. The third take is about invention. What often happens is, as an entrepreneur, when you're trying to make your pitch to investors or let alone to futuristic employees or even to your friends and family, they ask you that, so what's new? So what's new? What's the new technology? Have you patented something? I think we are trying to pay too much of attention to this whole notion of patenting, whereas we are not realizing that there are millions over millions of patents which have never seen the light of the day. Just to throw a statistics at you, which might be eyebrow-raising statistics for most of you, for about 7 million patents which are granted by the US Patent Trademark Office, 7 million, 70 lakh, or the 7 million patents which are granted, not just filed, by the US Patent and Trademark Office, just about 0.2% have ever been commercialized. 99.8% of all the patents have never seen the light of the day. And the only way you make money through your patent is either you deter your competition from encroaching your territory, and if they do, you file a lawsuit. And pharma companies are very good at that, and that's why they price their drugs so prohibitively high. And the second thing is if somebody is ready to pay royalty for you. And if none of these two things happen, then it is not wise to spend 25,000 US dollars and 4 years to get a patent done. There might be other ways of deterring your competition than filing patents, such as speed to the market, such as market saturation. Which means that invention is not essential for innovation, which brings me to another story. So fast forward to about 1970, Xerox was perhaps one of the biggest companies on the surface of Earth. they were so massive and they were so complacent that they thought that, well, almost every new technology that should happen in the space of office should happen at Xerox. So they set up a research center called PARC, Palo Alto Research Center, right across to the Silicon Valley, Stanford University. And the best and the brightest of the students would be borrowed from the Silicon Valley and would be asked to work at PARC. So Xerox pumped all the money into PARC. Now here is an engineer working in PARC who one day comes up to his manager saying that, you know, boss, I've come up with a very rustic looking device which allows you to move away from the disk operating system kind of a model of engaging with the monitor to something which is a graphical user interface. And to that his boss says, you know, are you out of your mind? What company are we? We are a photocopying company, damn it. So these things have no meaning for us. Take these things away. By chance, some of these engineers bumped onto another gentleman who was running a less known company by the name Apple. Steve Jobs happened to pay a visit to PARC. The mouse and the graphical user interface, which Xerox had no value of, was lapped up by Steve Jobs, and rest, as you know, is a history. Each of these $100 billion markets were invented by Xerox. Ethernet cable, graphical user interface, mouse, printing technology, and the word processor. Each of these $100 billion, by the $100 billion is the size of Indian IT service industry, just to give you things in perspective. Invented by Xerox, but Xerox never found use of any of these things because Xerox said that we are a photocopying company, and that is exactly where some of your core competencies, so-called, your core competencies becomes your core rigidities because you just can't see beyond. So what has given you value for so long may not be giving you value going forward. And we are seeing a case right now unfolding right in our industries, in our economy, where some of the biggest companies are getting disrupted by the outliers. And that's the third thing, which is it doesn't mean invention. Many times it is somebody else's idea that you borrow and you take it to the market. For example, Motorola. They invented cell phones. Nokia became a market leader for a long period of time, and now it is somebody which is a Samsung or a Xiaomi. Xerox invented photocopiers. Canon is the market leader. Eastman Kodak invented digital photography. Sony, for a long period of time, was a market leader. So it doesn't mean that you have to come up with an idea. Now, in the last 10 minutes which I've got with myself, I just want to talk about how do you build a culture of innovation within the organization so that you can leverage the ecosystem in which you are operating. Now, there are 5 elements of culture which I want to touch upon. The first element of culture is that for the leadership to create a stretch. A leader has to create a stretch for the employees to think big. And I want to talk about 2 examples back from India, Biocon and Dr. Reddy's lab. Biocon is a Bangalore-based outfit which is arguably the largest biopharma company in India, the largest maker of insulin in Asia. And second is Dr. Reddy's lab, which is arguably one of the most technologically advanced pharma company in this part of the world. Now, when Biocon started in 1978, Kiran Majumdar-Shaw used to be a brewer by profession. Now, 1978 was not the best time for a women brewer in India, supplying enzymes to beer makers, primarily Vijay Mallya's United Breweries, Vittal Mallya's United Breweries. From making enzymes, which is lowest end of the value chain, to making insulin, an anti-cancer drug, is a leap of faith sitting in India with just 7,800 employees. Without much of a funding coming from anywhere in the world, they have done it. They have 2 anti-cancer drugs in advanced stages in European market. That's only possible because of creating a sense of stretch. So the most important thing as an entrepreneur that you need to create is stretch. If you don't create stretch for the people, they'll never innovate. They'll be circulating the same orbit over and over again, and while doing so, they'll dissipate all the energy. The second important thing about entrepreneurship and creating a culture of entrepreneurship is diversity. Look at Israel. Israel is arguably the most innovative country on the surface of earth. Israel has a population of just about 70 lakh, which is 7 million, and the city where I come from, which is Bangalore, has a population of close to 10 million. So Israel as a country, both in its size and its population, is smaller than Bangalore as a city. Yet it is the most innovative country in the world. It is because of diversity. Israel has people from more than 80 nationalities working with each other, compulsory military training, So many cultures confluencing, and that is where diversity brings the best out of you. So if you have an organization, the last thing that you should do is to have people from the same community working, from the same college, from the same state, same gender. Right now here, this crowd is so gender skewed. I hardly see 4 women in this crowd. Not the best place for diversity and hence innovation. So diversity is the second thing. The third thing about great places to work for in terms of culture is what I call as autonomy. For many years, I used to work in a company called Wipro. Wipro is today, it's well documented, today the largest generator of entrepreneurs in the country is Wipro. For a long time, it was Hindustan Unilever or Hindustan Liver Limited which used to hold the post, but today it is Wipro. How come Wipro generates so many entrepreneurs in the country? And the reason goes back to the culture of the company, which has 2 manifestations. The first is operational autonomy, and second is financial accountability. Azim Premji gives people enormous amount of operational autonomy as long as he holds them financially accountable. So operational autonomy gets the best out of you. Think about it for a moment. The average Joe that you hire in your company has 18 years of experience, educational experience, through Indian education system. After 18 years of studies, if you have to still tell him what exactly has to be done and how exactly it has to be done, it's better that he is left on his own. And hence autonomy is the third thing that we need to give. The fourth thing is a sense of purpose. The problem that happens with most startups and even large organizations is people don't have a sense of purpose. They do not really know why am I waking up every day morning, coming to office in time, clocking in, doing my work, going back home and drawing a salary, and then queuing up to ATMs to get that. People don't know. A sense of purpose is missing. And that is where I want to tell you a small story which will take me about 30 seconds. So long back I was in Hyderabad in 2007 in Gachibowli. And I was in Wipro then, and we had a CIO of a large utilities company coming down from the UK and making a presentation. He goes to the dais, opens up a video and makes a presentation to the people. 700 people sitting in front of him, and people thought that he might just bore us with another PPT. He didn't do any of that. So the video goes like this. There is a lady who comes up and he sits on a couch, old lady, and she's watching television. And she's flipping the channels and she smells gas. All of a sudden she panics, there's no one around to help her, so picks up a phone and calls a 911 equivalent in the UK and said, I can smell gas, tell me what to do. So the person on the other side of the line says, ma'am, don't worry, go out, relax, and in the next 2 minutes we'll send somebody who will resolve the issue. In the next 2 minutes, a person comes and everything is resolved and the video is over. Now the CIO comes back to the stage and he says, you know what guys, the person who picked up the call on the other side of the line was a Wiproite. The one who wrote the code to find the nearest patrolling guy was a Wiproite. The person who ensured that this whole thing gets closed well in time and it's monitored is a Wiproite. So what you frankly do in this company is not write software codes. What you do in this company is to make the difference between somebody's life and death. And that's your purpose. Now tell me how many leaders are ready to give that sense of purpose to their employees? If you only say that if you don't come tomorrow, this will happen. If you don't come tomorrow, this will happen. If you only threaten them, then there'll surely be a day when they'll just not come. And that's, very painful for you. And the last thing about great places, which I think goes a long way in ensuring that we have very robust organization, is what I mean as extreme sense of discipline. We often think that startup is chaotic. People have to wear sneakers, they don't have to take bath for 2 days, post-its all around, the whole place has to be messed up, and only then you are a startup. Not necessary. The thing about chaos is that chaos allows you to create. But the thing about discipline is that discipline allows you to derive the value out of the creation. Too much discipline, you're saturated. Too much chaos, you don't go anywhere. So bringing discipline into doing things, which is closing a deal, signing a contract, resolving a complaint. It's not about selling a product or making a product alone. It's about those small things that make a difference between a startup and an enterprise. So that's my submission for all of you. Thank you very much.